Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host today. And before I jump into today's topic, which is about, taking stock of my chocolate life, I don't have a history of doing New Year's resolutions. Instead, I spend part of the last month of every year looking back at what has happened in the past year and figuring out how I might make adjustments for the coming year. And that's what we're going to be covering today. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by you, the members of the Chocolate Life. If you're not a member of the Chocolate Life, you can go over and visit TheChocolateLife.com. This is the homepage right now. I'm logged in, and so there's a little green button here that says account, where you can go down here, and that's my avatar. But if you're not logged in, yours will say join, or a plus sign, so you can join the Chocolate Life. So please go ahead and go do that if you're not a member. Support what we're doing. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, and then ring the bell to get notifications. And you can go into the comments, whether you're in the live chat on YouTube or on LinkedIn or in Facebook, the comments. Give me a shout out where in the world you're connecting from. And otherwise, if you got a question or a comment about anything that I'm going to be talking about today, please put it into the comments or the live chat, and I will attempt to answer that question for you today. And I'm noticing that there's this little vertical line right here in front of my face today. I think it has to do with the layout, the fact that I'm showing you my screen, and somehow this is associated with the edge of my screen. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm not going to be able to focus on that and fix it during the course of this episode. For every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I do create a post. And here is the post for today's episode. You can go and follow along as you're listening to this live, or you can always go back and watch it on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook. The links are on this page. There's also an audio podcast version for most episodes. So if you, go to the top and click on the arrow next to Pod Save Chocolate, you can look at the audio podcast dashboard. The first 80 episodes have been uploaded, so you can go and listen to them. And as you're listening to the audio, podcast versions, what you'll be able to do is follow along on this page. So you don't have to write down any URLs or anything like that. And with that, I'm going to get started. So, and this is a question that I get. So I'm going to start off with a question I get most asked when people learn that I'm a professional chocolate critic, and which is, hey, Clay, how did you become a professional chocolate critic? And the answer to that question is really, really simple. I realized one day that there were no professional critics for chocolate. There were professional critics for everything you could think of: wine, beer, spirits, architecture, television, radio, magazines, advertising, you name it. There were professional critics, but I couldn't find any professional critics for chocolate. And so I had spent a large part of the previous decade involved in high technology startups and in doing market research around aspects of high technology: computer graphics, interactive multimedia, electronic publishing and electronic image manipulation systems, database and information management tools. And so I had a history of looking forward. So, what is it that my company's products need to do to remain competitive? What are other companies doing that we need to think about? And just what are general trends? And so it just crystallized one day in my mind. Oh, all right. Yeah. Right. There are no such thing as professional chocolate critics. I'm going to become a professional chocolate critic. And so that's the simple answer. It just crystallized in my mind one day based on, a decade's worth of experience. And fortunately, at the time, I had the resources, both financial and in terms of family resources, to be able to go and figure this out. Right? And that's sort of the beginning the complicated answer for this, which is I had this entrepreneurial epiphany, and I needed to turn it into action. And without understanding to begin with what it was I needed to learn to know. What is it that I needed to know? Who could I learn it from? Where could I go? in order to learn it? And then how am I going to go and let the world know about it? And so that's the more complicated answer. What this is has what this is has evolved into, I think, is evolution is probably the best answer for this right now. What this has evolved into is um, a regular SWOT, which is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And this image is up on the episode for today right now, and you can go take a close look at it. And so, I've been able to use this approach. So strengths. What do I know? Right? What resources do I have? What am I good at? What I like to do? What is the intersection of what I like to do and what I'm good at? All these things. I'm able to take those and then go say, what are my weaknesses? And one of them is, once I learn something, I want to move on to the next thing. Right? So I'm always interested in learning something new. I mean, I would never make a great pastry chef. I would never make a good production chocolatier because, Ben, once I've mastered something, I want to be moving on to the next thing, and I don't want to be in the kitchen every day doing what I think of as the same thing over and over again. So that might be considered my weakness, one of my weaknesses. It is part of my personality. So just you need to be aware of these things, all right? And so then, what are the opportunities that present themselves? And this is where the 10 years or so that I spent working in high technology really comes into effect for me, is that I'm used to thinking about the future. What are the opportunities that exist? And then we also have I think this is paralleled. Another way to think about this is about the threats that are associated with it, which is what are other people doing, right? Or how has the marketplace changed, right? So that I need to respond to it. Right? And the reason why I'm talking about all of this way is that number one, as I have said in other episodes of Pod Safe Chocolate, um, it is helpful for me to think these things through, to talk them through, rather than just think through them or write through them. That the opportunity to hear myself saying something is part of my process for being able to figure out what strikes me as being true for me, as opposed to what strikes me as not being true for me. And this goes back to my education as a fine artist. People may know I'm a graduate of Rhode Island School of Design. I have a BFA in photography. And one of the things that we're taught as fine artists is to learn to trust our intuition, right? So that at some point, what you do, for me as a photographer anyway, I walk through the world with my camera on me. And, these days it tends to be the camera on my phone. But I'm walking through the world and I'm not necessarily looking for things to photograph. I'm not an active capture of images anymore. I do not go out for the purpose of taking pictures anymore. But as I'm wandering through the landscape, what it is I do is I notice things. So my work is very formal in many respects. It's about how shapes occupy the space within the frame. It's about contrast. It's about texture. It's about color. They're very, very formal concerns, right? I don't construct still lifes in front of my camera. I go out and find still lifes in landscapes. Is in the world around me the best way to think about it. And so as I'm looking around, I will see something out of the corner of my eye and I go, I think that's my a photograph that I would take. And then I go and get my camera out and I will go take a picture of it. So I recognize things in the world around me rather than constructing them. And I've learned to trust my intuition through, hundreds, if not thousands of hours of looking originally at, actual film negatives and going, not this one, not this one, not this one, not this one, not this one. This might be something I want to explore. I'm going to go make a print of it and go, not that one. And I think that one of the challenges that's associated with social media today and how easy it is to take pictures. I mean, there are over 5,000 images on the phone that I need to get to. I don't always edit them, and I need to be much better at editing them, especially when I've backed them up to the cloud, is that editing becomes really, really important. You need to look at something and go, no, this doesn't work for any reason. This doesn't work for any reason. This doesn't work for any reason. And so as I go through the SWOT analysis, this is what I'm looking for. There's an intellectual component, right? It needs to be a reasonable business opportunity. And then there is an intuitional, emotional component, right? That gets woven into all these four components of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what I want to do is I want to go and see if I can give you a visual guide to what that means for me in what it is that I'm doing. Again, it is the process of working through this for me that is valuable for me. And I'm hoping that my process, just working through it and showing it, right, will be something that inspires you and your thinking. So this is the first page, the home page of my first attempt, right, and going online and creating community. This is chocofile.com. It is captured by the Wayback Machine at archive.org in the first week of June in 2001. Right? Is that true? Yep, 2001. Friday. This is Friday. Yeah. This page went up on Friday, June 1st, and this was taken on June 2nd. And this is before Facebook. GeoCities may have been a real thing. It's quite possible that AOL was obviously very, very, it was big then. We've got whatever CompuServe was doing was also big. But I didn't I didn't think that those infrastructures gave me the capability of doing what it is that I wanted to do, which is establish my own identity. If I was on AOL, it was within their identity. If it was on CompuServe, it was within their identity. On Facebook, whenever somebody who wasn't in college could set up a Facebook account, it was their identity. And so I needed to create something. And at that point, there weren't a whole lot of frameworks for doing this kind of stuff. GeoCities, MySpace, maybe about this time. Again, I just didn't think they were the appropriate platforms for doing this. And so using a tool called Userland Frontier, created by a guy named Doug Weiner. It was a programming environment which allowed me to automate some aspects of generating the HTML, which was necessary to put together this page. But you can go and look and see. This was the first edition of chocofile.com way back when. And I was on chocofile.com from June of 2001 or late May or June of 2001 all the way through 2007. Right. And what happened in 2007 was that I published my book, Discover Chocolate. And it was thinking about Discover Chocolate back in 2007 that made me step back and go, the landscape of things on the internet, right, and the landscape of social media had changed a lot over the course of 6 years. Right? So in the time, Facebook was now a thing. We've got sites, is Twitter up and running? I don't know the answer to that question, but especially Facebook, MySpace is still humming along. And what we had as a result of or what I saw as a result of those new platforms for people being able to publish was that there was the rise of what I might call the citizen blogger. And these platforms had created the opportunity for people who had more free time and more free resources than I had. At the time, I was married. I had a daughter. I was raising 3 other daughters at the time, living in suburbia just north of New York City, is that I didn't have the spare time and the resources to be able to devote to this, that somebody who was in, for example, Silicon Valley, was single, or did not have family obligations the way I did, was making a good salary without the kind of obligations, financial obligations I had to my family, and could dedicate a lot of time and resources to a hobby like writing about chocolate. And so I had to think, what is it that I know, right? What is it that I have? What what are my capabilities, which are different from everyone else that might be doing this? So, one of them are obvious. Like, I had a lot more experience than most people. I had been doing this. My first job in chocolate was in 1999, selling Michel Cluzel and Domori for Pierrick Chouard, of plantations chocolate at the time, or vintage chocolates at the time, now vintage plantations. So I had done that. I had at that time been to producing countries on several different occasions. I'd been to Ecuador, I'd been to Mexico specifically to learn about cocoa, as well as Venezuela by the time of this. And so it was likely that the average person who was a hobbyist blogger, who was writing about chocolate, didn't have those experiences and didn't have my network, right? So by that time, my first ever summer fancy food show was in July of 2001. I had been a regular visitor every summer to the fancy food show. I had a chance to meet with people like Gary Guittard on a regular basis. I met with Frederick Schilling, the co-founder of Dagoba, in the summer of 2001. So there was all these sets of relationships that I had in place, that I had put together over the course of a half a dozen years, that included my work at the World Pastry Forum, the World and National Pastry Team Championships, my association with Pastry Art and Design magazine, with Chocolatier magazine, that provided sort of this range of opportunities. Not the range of, they didn't provide range of opportunities, but they provided a whole set of capabilities, right, that I had, that, again, this hobbyist blogger didn't have. What the hobbyist blogger had that I didn't have was a lot more time and a lot more resources to devote to their hobby than I did, because I was raising a family and I had to spend time, focused on family related activities. Uh, could I have made it work? The answer is yes, if I was, willing to spend, 20 hours a day doing it. At the time, for many reasons, I did not feel that that was something that I could do. And so I ended up looking for other things that I could take a look at. So again, here's chocophile.com. This is 2001. What happened next was I looked to take advantage of the publicity around the book. So I very, very quickly spun up a website called discoverchocolate.com. When I went out and proposed the title for the book, before I actually decided that that was the title I was going to use, I made sure I owned the domain name. This is something that I do today. If I've got a project, I don't move forward on the project until I know that at least I have a domain name which is related to it. This is a hand-coded version. Again, what it did, basically, it took the design of chocolatephile.com and updated it, just made it prettier. It is, again, hand-edited, right? So I'm doing this without a real content management system behind it. So this is not WordPress, right? This is not Joomla. This is not any of those kinds of things. It's a way to be able to take this design, right, and make it a little more modern, right, and a little more graphical, because that was the way everything was going. But as part of sitting down about this time in 2007, as I was working on that, right, I realized that the way for me to approach this, would be able to reach out to the group of people that I had been in touch with over the course of the last 7 years or so. Actually, at this point, more like a decade, and see if I could create an online community. And that's because very often I would get an email from someone who'd say, listen, I was in Italy 10 years ago. I got this chocolate. And I really, really loved this chocolate, and it had a green wrapper and gold writing. And I don't remember what it is. Do you know what it is? Right. And it was in response to getting these over and over and over again. Number one is I could spend a lot of time trying to figure that out, but this person was not going to compensate me for my time. Right. And so I could spend a lot of time doing this, but I could spend all my time right online answering questions like this. And if you were to go, for example, right now to r/chocolate on Reddit, at least 4 or 5 times a week there's somebody who goes, what's this? Can I was traveling, I ran across this chocolate, I don't remember much about it, but does anybody know what it is? Right. And so I realized that what I wanted to do was what I could do that other people couldn't do was I could create an online community and moderate an online community. What I quickly realized that I couldn't do this on Facebook. That at the time, so this is late 2007, October, November, December 2007, Facebook didn't have any of the tools that would allow me to identify who my audience was. It didn't have the advertising targeting tools or anything else. And at that point, the chocolate Facebook group was mostly, things like, Kit Kat rules and things like that. Right. And so the question is, even though there might have been 250 or 300 million members of Facebook at the time, how do I find the 5,000 or 10,000 that might be interested in um, an upscale group focusing just on sort of at that time the emerging bean to bar movement in chocolate. We're thinking about it at Craft Chocolate. We weren't really worrying about we were worrying about what's the difference between craft and artisan and things like that. But here there were like a relatively small number of craft chocolate makers in the United States at this time, 2006, 2007, 2008. And so Facebook could have been interesting, and in hindsight it probably would have been a better home for this, but it didn't have any of the tools to monetize what was going on. And it didn't have really at that time have the tools for me to be able to personalize the experience. And so realizing that, what I did is I went and discovered that there was this white label version of Facebook called Ning, right? And I could create a community on Ning that would have many of the capabilities of Facebook, right? And what I could do is I could make it look exactly the way I wanted to make it look within the limits of the templating capabilities, but I could brand it as my own. And so this Discover Chocolate lasted for about 90 days, maybe, right? And then in January, so specifically, I believe it was January 16th of 2008, what I did is I went up onto Ning and I created TheChocolateLife.com on the Ning platform. Now, this is another screen capture from the Wayback Machine at archive.org. This is from early January of 2009, so the site has been up for about a year. And one of the reasons why I had to move forward is that the early captures of the Chocolate Life on Ning don't have any of the formatting. It's just the HTML. There's a couple of missing divs or something like that, and it looks wrong. And so I just skipped forward 1 year and said, oh, let's do this. So this, I believe, is what is it? It's mid-January of 2009. And I have now the ability to be able to grow an online community and moderate an online community. People can upload questions, they can upload classifieds, they can ask and answer. So I'm developing a real community here. So, even with the limitations of the Ning platform, it was relatively inexpensive. It was costing me, basically $150 a year, or something like that to rent the platform out. So not hugely expensive, but I wasn't looking directly to monetize the website. What I was looking to do is I was looking to establish my reputation and bona fides, so that I could say, hey, I'm running this community, and you can see how active it is, and you can see what's going on. And so when I approached somebody about a story, or when I approach somebody for something, they can know, hey, this Clay guy, he sort of knows what it is that he's talking about. And he's got a group of people who are followers of him. And that was a very, very conscious decision I made very early on, that what I wanted to do was I wanted to use the Chocolate Life as a loss leader. It's a way for people to find me online. One of the great advantages I have now with the Chocolate Life is that the site has been active since January of 2008. So I'm coming up on my 17th anniversary here. And there's this thing called Google. And because of the number of times it's updated, because of all of the things that, it has SEO authority. So if you're looking for pretty much anything to do with chocolate on a consumer level, there's a really good chance that the Chocolate Life will show up in the first page of results. That's sort of less so today, as we see that if we look at, Google's Gemini and other AI search engines are trying to keep people within their walled gardens. But nonetheless, if you go through, you'll find that the Chocolate Life is considered to be a source for, and you'll find results that are cited from the Chocolate Life, very, very high up in the rankings. And to this day, that's the primary way I think about the Chocolate Life. People find me when they're interested in answering questions about chocolate. And the challenge becomes for me, how do I provide incentives so that people are going to um, engage with me, hire me, in order to be able to answer their questions. And this is one of the fundamental challenges of the internet these days, which is the knowledge economy. Everybody expects everything to be free. I can go into private groups on Facebook. I can go into public groups on Facebook. I can go into the r/chocolate subreddit. I can go into r/chocolate making subreddit, r/subreddit. I can go to r/cacao, r/cocoa, and I can just answer my question. And somebody is going to provide an answer. Don't necessarily know if it's going to be an authoritative answer. Don't necessarily understand it's going to be a good answer. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be an accurate answer. And so, but I can get an answer, and I don't have to pay anybody for anything. And so this is this is a challenge that I have been facing since launching the Chocolate Life in 2008. But this is what the Chocolate Life, again, this is what the Chocolate Life looked. This is early 2009. I'm on the Ning platform. And then in 2014, Ning said, you know what, we're going to be making fundamental alterations to our platform. And some of the modules of the Ning platform that I relied upon for my community were no longer going to be available. And so I would be losing large chunks of functionality, which included lacking the ability to display a lot of the content that was on the website. And so I started looking for alternatives to Ning, and found a company called Jamroom. Jamroom, it was designed for building musical communities. And they had been working on, once they learned about what Ning was doing, what they were building was an importer, export all of your content out of Ning into a big JSON file. And then what we will do at Jamroom is we will import all of that content from Ning, and we'll put it into a Jamroom template. And so I want to say March or April of 2015, I made the move. So I'm moving off of Ning at maybe $9 a month. I'm going over to Jamroom, which is significantly more expensive, right? But this is the first iteration. This is early 2015. You can see, I am really, really struggling with how to make it look. It's not that great. But over the course of it, but it did have all of the functionality I needed and more, right? So there was an active community of developers that I could go ask questions of. I had the actual developers there's an active community of users. There was a forum, so I could ask questions. And I could reach out to the developers of the core code, and I asked them to write some custom capabilities for me. And so I have some custom modules installed on my Jamroom client to this day that exist just for me, that I paid the developers to go and write for me. And so I've got the ability to host my forums. I've got images. I've got video. So this is the site in early 2015. This is what it looks like about 2 years later. So you can see that it's gotten more visual. There's a lot more components. And again, this is just a screenshot. Again, I'm going to the Wayback Machine on archive.org. This is what the Chocolate Life looked like in the summer of 2017. Now, all right, all of what it is that I'm doing here, or over the course of this, again, is to grow the Chocolate Life community. And between 2008 and 2017, I had registered over about 15,000 unique members at one time. Not all of them were active, and some of them had fallen by the wayside, but I had registered about 15,000 members over the course of those 8 years. And about this time, so it's late spring, early summer of 2017, I was approached by a brand new startup called the Maven Network. And they said, "Hey, Clay, we're looking for communities of interest that we think that we can monetize on our new platform." And I have to admit that I was looking for a change from Jamroom, because a lot of the moderating that I was doing at this point was around spam, right? So people had noticed that the Chocolate Life was an SEO authority. They were registering phantom accounts. They were going and making random posts. And even though there was a spam detector module in Jamroom called the Kismet, connected to a Kismet, which is a spam detection service, I was spending more than half my time just trying to figure out what was spam, what wasn't spam, banning people who were not being good actors on the website, and it stopped being fun. And if you know me, one of the things I always say, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, then this is often an indicator for me I'm not having fun anymore. I need to go through this SWOT analysis and figure out what it is that I want to do next. So at this point, it's about this point that people at Maven came to me and said, "Hey, Clay, we'd like you to become part of the Maven network." And I made the decision to move over to the Maven platform. And at the time, there were no tools to import any of the content from the Jamroom site into the Maven site. If I wanted to do that, what I did is I asked the people at Jamroom to write a module to export one story at a time. And what I was able to do is I was able to move that over, those stories, about 100 that I thought were the most interesting stories, over to the Maven network. The biggest change, and the one that I think is the critical one that I overlooked, is that on Jamroom and on Ning before it, any member could start a new bit of content. So let me go over to the live site, which is here. Let me go over to the live site, which is here. If I go to the forums and I'm a member, I can come into the classifieds. This is turned off for everybody else but me, and I could create a new classified. Or if I wanted to go and look at a new topic, I'm looking for help on something, every single member could go. Let me click on this. And you know what? This topic is closed, so people can't go and do this. I need to go and do some maintenance on this very, very shortly. But people could go and create their own posts. And I did not moderate anything advanced. Everything was moderated ex post facto. And this gave permission for people to participate in ways that they couldn't do on Maven, that they could do on Jamroom, and they could do on Ning. So really, really important aspect that I didn't really understand at the time. Right? And so here I am on the Maven. And if you were a member of the Maven, right, the Chocolate Life on the Maven, you could comment on one of my posts. And what happened is at this point, this went from being a community back to being a blog. And since 2017, right, I have been responsible for basically 100% of the new content that goes up on the Chocolate Life. And that's good in some respects, it's bad in others. Number one is I don't have to worry about spam any place but in the comments. And because I get an email every time a new comment is posted, I can say, oh, this is spam, and um, I can ban the members so they can't um, post again. But this is what the Chocolate Life looked like in early 2017. I went from about 10,000 registered member to about 2,000 active members at that time. And the Chocolate Life was in this state for about 2 years. So through 2019, when the people who operated the Maven network decided, hey, we're going to go and we're going to take all these small special interest sites who, because the platform has been underdeveloped and we haven't yet delivered all of the capabilities that we said we would deliver back in 2017 when we recruited you, we're going to ask that we're going to kick you off the Maven network. You need to find something else to do. And, fortunately, they said, okay, it's now sort of like August of 2019. We're not going to actually kick you off until you find someplace to go. Now, at that point, what I did is I am going, oh my gosh, what do I go do? Right? I could export all the new content and re-import it back into Jamroom, but at this point, the Jamroom is looking a little dated, right? One of the reasons why I wanted to move to Maven is because I thought it looked more modern, right? And so, do I really want to go back to this when this is what I'd been doing? And so I expanded. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It's another platform change. It's another break in continuity. I started off in a hand-coded site. I went to another hand-coded site. I went to white label software from Ning. I went to white label software to Jamroom. I'm now at a hosted platform, which is called the Maven. So I'm the Chocolate Life on the Maven network. And now I need to figure this out again. And what do I want to go do? And at this point, the only money I'm making from Maven is advertising that they were displaying. I did not have any choice. Their business model was advertising. I was taking a percentage of advertising that was being shown on my pages. And so that's nice. It's not costing me anything to host this, right? I am making some money, not a huge amount of money. But if I'm going to go take this private again, I need to figure out a way to be able to make some money on it, because I didn't want to go back to I didn't want to go back to paying 100% of the cost of hosting the site. At this point, just for the domain names and the hosting and backup and all the kind of stuff is close to $1,000 a year to do. So I needed to provide. I wanted some income that's associated with it. And so I ended up revisiting all of the platforms that I had been looking at about the time when I was looking to move from Ning to Maven, or Ning to Jamroom, excuse me, and looking to see if any of them had upgraded their capabilities. And I was always interested in an open source hosting platform called Ghost, and because it provided me with a lot of flexibility when it came to templates, and I could make it extremely visual. And there was a membership. People could become members of my community for commenting purposes, but there were no subscription capabilities. And one of the things that Ghost was launching in mid 2019 was subscriptions, that you could have a free tier, and then if you wanted to, you could have tiers of additional perks that people could pay more for. And I said, absolutely, let's go and do this. I found a developer. I'm still working with this developer, so it's now 2019. So it's now 5 years later. And he not only did the work of the templating, he moved all of the content over from Jamroom and Maven into this new iteration of the Chocolate Life on Ghost. And he has developed a lot of special templating and other kinds of capabilities for me on Ghost. And this is what, so, okay, so this is where we are, right? This is Ghost today. Right? The reason why I went here is that all along what I've done is I've kept the archive of the Chocolate Life, the original Chocolate Life, up through the move to Maven. So all of that content has been available for the last now 7 years, but it has not been updated on a regular basis. You can't join, you can't add a new any kind of new content. But I'm in the process, I have been in the process for the last 6 to 8 months of looking to figure out how to make that possible using something called single sign-on. You'd be able to have an account on the Chocolate Life. It would automatically create an account for you on the archive site. You could go to the archive site, you could create an account, you could post, it's like just one membership, and you'd be able to go back and forth. So just, and it turned out to be really, really hard to do. But so this is what the Chocolate Life looks like on Ghost. This is a screenshot from yesterday, and here's what the live site looks like. This is what it looks like. So there's been a change. You see that I have the ability to pin posts to the top rail. I can have announcements up here. I can change the navigation. I've got tags, so I can highlight the most recent 3 posts. I mean, this is something that I have a great deal of control over in terms of the basic functionality. But what it's missing is the forums. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing over the course of the next week or two, and I've been saying this, unfortunately, for the last couple of months, is that this has been much further out of my reach, sort of technically, programmatically, than I thought it was. And it turns out that I thought there was a capability on Jamroom that isn't there. I'm in the process of communicating again with the developers. There's a beta import utility to be able to take members of the current Chocolate Life website. So I can take members of the Chocolate Life, I can take their email addresses, I can import them into Jamroom, send them an email and say, hey, your Chocolate Life account is now on the archive site. I'm going to rename this the Chocolate Life forums, and people are going to be able to interact with the forums the way they have since the beginning, right? Where the Chocolate Life becomes what my platform for promoting myself, my platform to talk about what I think is of interest to me, right? And the Chocolate Life archive, again, I will rename this from the archive to something else, will be the active site. The forums site will be open so that people will be able to go and ask new questions and post responses, all the things that they've been able to do for quite some time. There'll be an image gallery where people can upload things. Not certain about being uploading new videos. Those are not certain about those, but the archive will remain, and so there'll be lots of capabilities that people will have that historically are a part of a community site. And my goal is to get these up and running in the month of December. But the first thing that I need to, well, not the first thing, but one of the things that I need to do is I need to find out about importing all of the members of the Chocolate Life on Ghost that are active that aren't in the database on the archive site. So when I figure that out, it will be generally available to the public, although I'm going to be opening up the capabilities before then. And if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, I will send you an email and say, hey, you can go and use the email address for TheChocolateLife.com. And if you don't already have an account, you can go and work on the archive site. Because it turns out that this community component, which people love from Facebook and Reddit and all these other places, is something that I need to do, right? In order to be able to simply drive more engagement. Now, I do have various membership tiers. So you click on your account and you can go look, and there are a bunch of different membership tiers where you can support what it is that I'm doing. There's always a free tier that you can financial support is not a requirement. Just being a free member is always something that people have been able to do. But I've got a lot more capabilities now in terms of the site, the Ghost site, that I am much more. Um, I feel like I can depend on much more, in part because it's an open source platform, and I do have a developer who is able to provide me with the kinds of new capabilities that I'm looking for. And so that's really, really important for me. Now, another part of this, all right, is that what I've done is there's a visual guide. All of the images that I've shown you, including the current page of the archive and the current Go site, are here, and you can go through and you can, if you're listening to the audio podcast, you can follow me along with that. Now, another thing that I did was you're watching one of these now. You're looking at a podcast or listening to a podcast. And so part of what it is that I have done is during COVID, I was going crazy and I was looking for things to do, and I was looking to engage with people in ways that I couldn't in the early days of moving the Chocolate Life from the Maven to Ghost. And so when I learned about Clubhouse, I went and jumped in as quickly as I could to get a Clubhouse account. And while it was easy to open up a Clubhouse account in order to listen to other people's rooms, getting an invitation to set up your own room was something that required somebody else to recommend at the time. But I did get that recommendation, and in 2021, over the course of roughly 29 weeks, I hosted 145 episodes. I hosted them, co-hosted with David Greenwood Haig from the UK, but I hosted 149 episodes, and you can learn a little bit about how that ended, right? And why I ended up saying, this was an audio-only format. I did it 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and for me, the discipline during lockdowns was about, okay, I need to be at the same place at the same time every single day. And I needed to be able to put together a schedule of things that I wanted to talk about and produce artwork and promotion for the course of doing it. So for me, it was, I think, this thing in Clubhouse was something that really, really kept me sane over the course of the roughly 5 months, 6 months that I did this. So it was important. You can learn a little bit more why I stopped at Clubhouse, but it had to do with there was some behind the scenes friction that I didn't want to deal with. It stopped being fun, right? Because I was dealing with this behind the scenes mishigas. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up moving to this platform, which is called StreamYard. And I produced 145, coincidentally, it was 149 episodes of of the Chocolate Life on Clubhouse. And I produced 145 episodes of the Chocolate Life Live over the course of roughly almost exactly 2 years. And there's a link to the entire archive of this, of the Chocolate Life Live. And then this time, 2 years ago, I decided to, 2 years ago, 2023, November 2024, it's only been a year. This time a year ago, I decided to go through a rebranding exercise. And instead of calling it the Chocolate Life Live, ended up decided to rename it as Pod Save Chocolate. And I commissioned some original artwork, and I commissioned some original music for the intro theme and outro theme and for the backgrounds to do that. And I'm currently on episode 87. And so all told, it's like 149 plus 185 is 294 plus 87 is almost 400 episodes, right, of some sort of content, which is either audio only or visual component. And there's more that I did independently of these, which are on the YouTube channel, which is now called Pod Save Chocolate. But there are playlists which are other content that I have created and uploaded. So the big unmet challenge, so we're talking about here, the big unmet challenge over the course of the last 5 years, no, 7 years for me, since I moved from Jamroom and moved to the first Maven and then Ghost, was to replace the community component. How am I going to go and replace the community component? I had first thought that maybe the way to do it was to develop a Slack, use an open source version of Slack to engage the community, because I didn't want people to have to pay to work with a Slack client in order to do this. So I was looking at doing this. I used an open source product called Rocket Chat to try to do that. It didn't work. There was so much overhead in terms of configuration that trying to figure out how to make it work just was really a challenge. And managing the membership, also incredibly difficult. Right. And I needed to be in Rocket Chat, at least an hour every day in order to be able to do the management. And I was finding it to be onerous and borderline tedious in terms of, oh my gosh, why isn't this working? How do I figure this out? And that's also the same reason I didn't move over to Discord. I have found Discord to be more work as an administrator that I'm willing to engage with on a regular basis in order to make it work. And so I haven't done that, and I've been looking for an alternative. And ultimately, what I said is I need to use single sign-on. I want to use single sign-on in order to be able to make it easy for people to go back and forth between the ChocolateLife and the archive site without having to manage two entirely different accounts. And SSO has turned out to be even more work for lots of different reasons, but the most significant one being is that the Ghost site doesn't use passwords, and it's not easy to pass a token that says I'm logged in on the ChocolateLife over to Ghost and have it go, authenticate using a password, and vice versa. So that's a simple way to do it. In order to do that, I would have had to use a third-party program, which is often used for SSO using an OAuth process called OAuth, in order to be able to manage this, but I would have had to pay quite a bit in order to make it work. And still the challenges of going back, because this intermediate product wasn't built to be able to handle passwordless communities. So I'm biting the bullet. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be opening up the original forum site, the original The ChocolateLife on Jamroom. I'm still going to be called the archive, but I'm going to open it up, and it is going to be live and active for new signups and new forums, and people will be able to post the stuff that they want to post and use it the way they've been using it in the past. And then what I will be doing is I will putting some sort of link to it permanently on the homepage. Right now, it says TCL Archive. It may just be forums, and you click over there, and even though the URL is the same, I'll probably maintain it for SEO purposes. I will change the branding of it, so it will no longer be called the ChocolateLife Archive. It will be called, forums, and we'll be able to play with it. And I think that, this sort of looks like a forum, and so it makes sense in terms of, how it looks and how it presents and all those things. So that's all of that. Whew, man, lot to talk about. And if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat, and I can answer you those things. But there's something else that I am launching, because when one door closes, another door opens. And the door that closed, and I mentioned this in the December 2024 newsletter. If you remember, you got the December 2024 newsletter. It was emailed to you. If you are not a member and you join and you log into your account, you will be able to look at the December content. So go do that. One thing to say is that this coming Sunday at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time is the monthly AMA. So if you are a member, I open up a Google Meet room for 90 minutes once a month, and anybody can come in and we can talk about whatever it is that you want. And that's this coming Sunday. The link is in the link is on this page. And I am logged in, so the link is there. Woo. It's just a link. You can't see it. But if you're a member, you can also take a look at the link. If you're not a member, what you'll do is you'll see something that says you're not a member, Do you want to join? That's the way these things work, because that's a capability that Ghost offers. What I am doing, which is new, is that one of the things that I talked about in the December 2024 newsletter is that since the June-July issue of 2021, I have been the technical editor at International Confectionery Magazine. And I had a series of conversations with the ownership and the publishers of International Confectionery. It's been going on for at least 6 months now, about changing the relationship. I had working for 3.5 years. I had they had published 35 articles that I had written over the course of this time, and I had received no compensation, either directly in terms of money, and was beginning to feel that the other forms of compensation, which are in kind, how many more subscribers are I getting? How many people know about me because of the magazine, and they're reaching out to me because they want to hire me? It was feeling unbalanced, and I said, like, what can we do to balance what's going on? Again, I'm just sitting here and going, it's not as fun as it used to be. I see the value in doing it, but it's not as fun. And maybe it's time to see if we can renegotiate the business relationship. And 2 weeks ago, they said, hey, we've changed the commercial part of their business. They had a bunch of people who left and they replaced them. They did a lot of changes on the editorial side. Between 2021 and 2024, there were three editors of International Confectionery, and a fourth one, actually. And so a lot of turnover over the course of that time. And so they're just looking to change the business, and so the editorial and commercial back end of their business. And they decided that, they didn't need my services anymore. But for me, the ability to call someone up and say, hey, I'm writing an article for International Confectionery, I'd like to interview, was an important aspect of what it is that I was doing. Because for me, if I can learn something new, as I think I said at the very beginning, I'm constantly looking at learning new things. So what I've decided to do, and people are getting to see this for the first time, is I am starting something called the Chocolate Newswire. The Chocolate Newswire is a twice a month subscription newsletter. It's going to be, the newsletter is only going to be sent to subscribers to the Newswire. And what I will do is I will put a link to the landing page in today's episode. So you can go and read it. So I'm showing it right now. So this is the landing page. I have to show it in another browser because I'm logged in. And if I go to this page, it'll show you the content of the page. But the Newswire, it tells you all about what will be in every issue, what the subscription options are. There's a monthly and there's an annual subscription, and the benefits which are associated with doing it. So the Chocolate Newswire, number one, it's discipline. Every 2 weeks, so it'll be the first week of the month and the third week of the month on the Thursday. So the first and third Thursday of every month, I'm going to be publishing a newsletter which will contain at least one in-depth story, a deep dive story with analysis. There are going to be categories of stories like health and events and people and innovation. And so there will be stories, short form, like 300 word roughly, on each of those, in each of those categories. And that will be delivered with source links, because I think providing source links is really important. It's something that many of the trade magazines don't provide in their coverage, is they don't give you the source links. And so this is going to be a new thing. The first edition, the first issue, live issue, is going to be published on the first Thursday in January. And the topic is going to be alternative chocolates. So that's going to be the topical issue for the first issue in, is that true? Yes. Maybe. That's what maybe I'll do. We'll figure it out. I mean, that's one of the topics that I'm looking at. I will probably do a précis of the conversation that I had with Mark Donaldson about the EUDR and the CSDDD, the CSRD and the SRS, all that alphabet soup, but do it with some additional analysis, right? So that people can, they don't have to listen through 2 hours worth of podcast episodes. And so I'm going to be able to use the podcasts and be able to reach out to people and say, I am doing an episode in X, Y, and Z. What I'd like to do is I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So that's going to be coming up. So this is primarily for people who are in the profession. So people who are professionals in the profession, people who are professionals in cocoa and chocolate and confectionery, who are looking for a news source that, among other things, cites primary sources. So again, there are a couple of people who have done this over the course of the last 6 months. I mean, one of them focuses almost specifically just on cocoa, so I don't want to do that. I think that there's some value in covering the things more broadly. So if you're interested in a twice a month digest of relevant news, I mean, so for example, if you just search for chocolate on Google, you get a lot of stuff that you don't want to know about. Or if you search for cocoa, you get Cocoa Beach, and in Florida, you'll get Cape Canaveral because it's nearby. You don't want to sort through all those stuff on a regular basis. You're looking for somebody who's doing a digest of the work, and that's what I will be doing. So having said that, so this is the landing page if you are not logged in up here. So this is the landing page if you're not logged in. If you are logged in, all right, actually that's not the case. So there is a tag associated with this, which is the newswire, and you can go and go to this page right now. I'll put a link to it. Even if you're not a member, you'll be able to see this because you can see I'm logged out here. There's nothing here. And what I will be able to do, you'll be able to see this page, which goes in and tells you more about what the Chocolate Wire is all about. So it's so there's a landing page for people who are not members, not logged in. There's a page which, here is some of the content, and it'll talk to you about a little bit more, and you'll get an idea about what the visual format will look like and what the contents are. And so this is that. I just wanted to show that was going on. I'm also testing to make sure that everything works. So that's a really important thing. I also want to point out that as a part of this, what I'm doing is I have updated, let me go take a look at this. All right, I have updated what it is that I'm doing with respect to editorial and press and PR services. So the Chocolate Wire was started actually in March, May, June of 2020, just as lockdowns were coming on. It was a dedicated press and PR service designed to be a low-cost service for people who needed press and PR services, but didn't necessarily have the resources to pay a full-service agency to do these things. And I was just focusing on chocolate and cocoa. And I have revamped all of these services so that you can go and take a look and see if they make sense for you. So 2025 for me is focused in terms of new content development and new things I want to do. Is focused on editorial, press and PR services. It's focused on the newswire, and it is focused very, very specifically on reintroducing and reactivating the community, which has been associated since 2008 with the Chocolate Life. And why am I doing this? Again, SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Right. So this is not New Year's resolutions. These are business related. I'm looking to drive more income than I'm currently getting. That is a primary aspect of doing this. It's a primary motivation for doing this. But it's also, it provides me with, because I'm no longer the technical editor at International Confectionery, and I value the ability to go and talk with people, right, as the technical editor, that putting together the news service is something that I can engage with, that people will engage with me about. And that's one of the real reasons why I'm going to do that. What are my strengths? I have I know a lot of people. I have a documented history of writing about complex technical topics over the course of my entire career from 1984 until today, but specifically in the last 3 years. So that's something that I like to do. It gives me an opportunity to learn. So I'm happy when I go do that. But I see an opportunity. I see a place in the market where there is a group of people who will in fact appreciate what it is that I'm doing and are willing to pay for the way I think about things. And that's the end of my description of it, what I'm doing, and the way I'm thinking of the SWOT aspect of it, the SWOT analysis. And just want to summarize it by saying, I understand this is the busy time of the year for anybody who's in production, who's selling for the Christmas season or the holiday season in general. Not only do you have Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa right now, but we have February and we have Valentine's Day, and then of course we have Easter and Mother's Day coming in. So this is a big time of year. People are busy in their workshops, but I'm hoping, right, that by showing what I did and my motivation and how I worked through it and what I was responding to in terms of the kinds of opportunities that were presented to me, the kinds of um, rather than threats, sort of obstacles and barriers, what are the challenges that I need to address? That by my thinking through it, what's going to happen is that if you do get any time, perhaps between Christmas Day and New Year's Day, that there will be some downtime, there'll be some quiet time. And what you'll do is you'll be able to sit back and ask yourself, what, what, what am I good at? Right? What do I like to do? What do I want to be doing? Right. So when you think about the Chocolate Life, I mean, people, joke, but the Chocolate Life, that name came as a result of having fun with the title of a Ricky Martin song. So Living La Vida Loca became Living La Vida Coco, became Living the Chocolate Life. And you know, I laughed. It was fun. I thought the pun was really, really interesting for me. And so what I want to do is I want to, if I can, inspire you when you have a little downtime at this time of the year, to go rather than reinvent yourself, which I think which is not a prospect that I like at all. It's about rediscover perhaps what got you into doing this, the joy, what it is that you hope to achieve when you started out, and how do you go about looking at that, those things as strengths, right? And then figure out what you want to be doing over the course of the next year to drive whatever your business is, to be able to drive it forward, right? How do you go and face honestly, objectively, or even subjectively? I always um, advocate for looking at these things honestly, but going and looking at things and saying, what can I do to make sure that I'm having more fun, that I am growing in what it is that I'm doing. I'm learning. I'm learning new techniques. I'm learning new information. I'm unlearning. I want to maximize the things I know and minimize the things that I don't know. Don't know. You that's the wrong phrase for it. But I want to maximize good ideas and minimize bad ideas and understanding. All of these things are what motivates me, and I'm hoping that these are things that will resonate with you in some way, and they are things that you can take and you can use and move forward with them. And with that, the stream has run a little longer. This episode has run a little longer than I had anticipated, but I do want to mention again that this coming Sunday, which is today's the Friday, and so Sunday, which is the 15th of December, it's going to be at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, is the next episode, the next monthly all member AMA call. So if you are a member of the Chocolate Life, whether you're a member last week or you're a member after watching this, you can go and get the link, assuming you're logged into the Chocolate Life, you can go get the link and you can join the member call on Sunday. And, as long as it's about cocoa or chocolate, it's an AMA. So if you're having a business problem, this is one of the perks of membership. You got a business problem, you got a production problem, you have an idea that you want to float, any of those things can be brought up during the course of the AMA. And with that, right, as I always do, remember, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, ciao.